Stay with me until the very end, because the moment everyone laughed at becomes the moment no one will ever forget. And before we begin, if you enjoy stories that move your heart and restore your faith in everyday heroes, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us bring you more stories like this, and it tells the algorithm that stories with meaning still matter. No one noticed the man at first. That was the strange thing. In a city that worshipped glass towers and tailored suits, a man in a worn jacket walking a mixed-breed dog on a fraying leash barely registered as background noise. Yet this was the same man whose quiet decision would change multiple lives before the sun set. And somewhere far above him, in an office that smelled of espresso and power, a CEO would make a joke that would come back to haunt him. Ethan Cole was the kind of CEO people whispered about in elevators. Young, sharp, wealthy beyond imagination, and proud of it. He ran a security tech company from the 42nd floor, where the windows didn't open and the air always felt controlled. That morning, he stood near the glass with a group of executives, laughing about a delayed meeting. When he glanced down, he saw the man with the dog waiting at the crosswalk, rain soaking the man's shoes, the dog sitting calmly beside him. Ethan smirked and nodded toward the street. That's the problem with this city, he said lightly. People who never move forward, just walking in circles. A few people chuckled. Someone added something about dead ends. None of them noticed the man look up at the building, not because he heard them, but because he always checked reflections in windows. Old habits were hard to break. The man's name was Daniel Reyes. He used to wear a uniform, used to carry responsibility heavier than any leash. Years ago, he had been part of a unit that trained dogs for high-risk situations: search, rescue, protection. But life had turned sharply after an injury and a decision that saved others but cost him his career. Now he lived modestly, worked part-time, and spent most of his days with the one partner who never asked him to explain himself, a dog named Luna. Luna wasn't impressive to look at. Medium-sized, sandy fur, one ear that never stood upright. People assumed she was just another shelter dog. Daniel preferred it that way. He had trained her patiently, gently, not for fame or medals, but for trust. She watched him constantly, not out of fear, but out of love and purpose. As Daniel waited to cross the street, a sudden commotion broke the rhythm of the city. A man burst out of a nearby jewelry store, panic in his eyes, one hand clutching a bag, the other gripping a weapon. People screamed and scattered. Time stretched thin, like the air before a storm. Daniel felt it instantly, the shift, the danger, the choice. He didn't think about being a hero. He thought about the people frozen in fear, the woman who had tripped near the curb, the child clinging to her father's coat. He knelt slightly and whispered one word to Luna. Her body tensed, focused, not aggressive but alert. The armed man ran toward the intersection, desperate, reckless. Luna moved before anyone else understood what was happening. She didn't attack blindly. She did what she had been trained to do: create distance, disrupt, protect. In a blur of motion, she forced the man off balance, giving bystanders time to escape. The weapon clattered away. The threat dissolved into confusion and fear. Police arrived within minutes, but by then, the danger was already over. Luna stood between Daniel and the shaken crowd, tail low, eyes steady. Daniel's hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of a past he thought he had left behind. High above, Ethan Cole watched the chaos unfold. At first, it was just another crisis on the street, something to be managed by someone else. But then he saw the man with the dog. The same man he had mocked. He watched as that nobody knelt to comfort a trembling stranger, as the dog sat calmly, a silent guardian. Something tightened in Ethan's chest. Later that day, the story spread, not in flashy headlines at first, but in quiet conversations, shared videos, grateful tears. People talked about the dog who stopped an armed criminal without unnecessary harm. About the man who never asked for praise. About courage that didn't wear a suit. Ethan couldn't focus. He replayed the moment again and again. He thought about the security systems his company sold, cameras, alarms, barriers, and how none of them had done what that man and his dog had done in seconds. By evening, he found himself walking the streets he usually observed from above. He found Daniel sitting on a bench, Luna resting her head on his knee. Ethan hesitated, then approached, awkward and uncertain. He apologized, not the polished apologies he was known for, but a raw one. He admitted his arrogance. He admitted he had been wrong. Daniel listened quietly. Then he smiled, not with pride, but with understanding. "We all miss things when we're looking down," he said softly. That conversation changed more than one life. Ethan began funding community training programs, not for profit, but for preparedness and care. Daniel was offered chances to return to the world he had left, but on his own terms. He chose to teach, to mentor, to pass on patience and responsibility. And Luna, she went back to being what she had always been, a good dog, walking beside her human, unnoticed by most, but ready when it mattered. So if there's one thing to carry with you after this story, it's this: greatness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it walks quietly at your side, waiting for the moment when doing the right thing matters more than being seen. If this story moved you, remember to like and subscribe, and stay with us, because the next story might remind you of the hero you already are.